family. So glad to be back with you for another episode of Swami Live. I am Anthony Howell, otherwise known as Swami Live. If you are new here, what we do here is discuss healing and the evolution of us becoming the best and most authentic version of ourselves in various forms. We do live energy readings, we have interviews, we do homework, we do practice exercises, and we learn new information to expand our perspectives, right? We do this in an effort to create a collective energy that we all can tap into to help support our growth and evolution and to provide somewhat of a safe space for us to be able to connect with people on the same journey with us, and a space for us to be able to be vulnerable and open with ourselves and others to be able to practice those skills. You can catch our show every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then we also have a spinoff show on Thursday, which is Thursday Night Book Club. And it also is at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and that's it. That's where you find us at. So generally, at the beginning of every, excuse me, hold on. So generally, with every week, we do a little bit of energy work. And this week, we are back on our crown, the work on the energy of our crown. The crown is known for your consciousness, it is your spiritual connection, and it is your sacred knowledge, that universal knowledge that you can tap into that you just don't quite know how you know, but you do know. And if you are into color therapy, the color for your crown is violet. And of course, your crown is in charge of your thought. That's the element for your crown. So if you are into color therapy, again, the color for that is violet. So you want to spend some time in some violet lights, wear some violet colored clothes, eat some violet colored food, things like that to be able to help you to balance out that energy. If you are into essential oils and aromatherapy, you want to think frankincense, not myrrh this time. Oh, no, it is frankincense and myrrh, which this time I ain't laugh at. We have rosewood, sandalwood, and lavender are all good scents for your crown chakra or crown energy point. If you are into crystals and gemstones, you want to think selenite, you want to think amethyst, you want to think moonstone, clear quartz, and diamonds. Diamonds are very good for your crown energy to be able to balance that. So the next thing we do to work on our energy, to do the energy work, is we do a little sound therapy. So we listen to the bowl, and then after that we'll do some breath work and affirmations, and then we get moving on to the show. So during this time, all you have to do is a time for you to be able to shift and adjust your energy and to begin to get into the space of where we are, the collective healing energy. So relax, clear yourself of the energy of the day, and just enjoy the sounds of the bowl. Next, we do a little breath work with various breathing exercises. This week, I am in the mood for 4-7-8. If you are unfamiliar with the breath work or the breathing exercise of 4-7-8, that is, you breathe in for a 4 count, you hold for a 7 count, and you exhale for an 8 count. But during this time, all you really do have to just focus in on your breathing and your energy and listen to the sound of my voice as I will keep the count for us as we go through this exercise. On the count of 3, family, we will start. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, family. Now, after we do that, we want to make sure that we are incorporating language to be able to support the growth and development. So I want you to repeat these affirmations after me. I am divine. I am connected to the universe. I am at peace. I am a spiritual being. I release doubt and welcome faith. And with that, family, we can get this party on the road. Hold on, what we got going on here? right, family. Where we at? Doop 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 doop. This is your weekly reminder that you too can purchase the 7 Spaces of Healing, available now on Amazon. It is a book to help you recognize or be able to conceptualize 7 spaces that are important for your healing and development that you want to cultivate within yourself. And you also want to make sure that you are a part or place yourself in some of this energy. Those 7 spaces are a space for love, a space for healing, a space for solitude, a space for trust, a space for risk without judgment, a space for accountability, and a space for forgiveness. Again, you can get your copy now, available on Amazon in ebook and softback, which we enjoy to call it around here, softback. Okay, hold on, what am I at? Oh no. I'm trying to multitask and that winds up being too much, really. I ain't even gonna lie. But I need to make sure that if I'm in a space to make a clip or something like that, we can do that easily. All right, so we're catching up. We're continuing our discussion of the 12 universal laws. Last week we did law 8, which was the law of, what was it? The law of compensation. What did we learn? With the law of compensation, we gained the understanding that we are compensated for whatever we contribute. And these contributions can include thoughts, it includes actions, it includes your intentions and your service. All of those are contributions that we are compensated for. We also discussed and understood the importance of the clarity on compensation isn't always a monetary gain. Sometimes compensation winds up being in various things. For example, we contribute value, we can get a reward. Or if we contribute effort, we get compensated with growth. Or if we contribute service, we get compensated with opportunities. And if we contribute kindness, we get compensated with things like connection and trust and stronger relationships, right? We also understood that compensation isn't always immediate, right? And this is the dynamic that allows people to give up before they actually compensated. There's a time delay with that. There's a point where you do the work, and after you do enough work, the compensation starts coming in for you, right? So compensation is generally indirect as well. So just because I give in one way, it does not necessarily mean that I receive back in that way. I may give in one way and then like I may provide services for one person and get more opportunities over here in this direction. Compensation isn't always direct, right? Your compensation, the level of compensation is determined by the quality of your services. It is the amount of value. Like, how many people have you helped? How many people feel as though you help? How deeply have you helped them? Do they feel like things have changed for them? It is also based on our intentions behind the giving. Like, why are we actually providing services? Why are we actually giving? That helps to determine the level of compensation and, most importantly, the alignment with our purposes. If it's in alignment with the direction or the vision that we have for our lives and the vision that we have for our relationships and interactions, right? We also talked about the implications of this law. One major implication of this law is that you are paid for value, not effort. It dispels the myth that hard work harder, work harder. It's not always based on hard work. It's based on the value, right? So that's why this idea of work smarter, not harder comes into place. It tries to balance out this idea, that concept of work hard, hard work. Hard work will get you there when it's not necessarily low, because the law of compensation allows us to know that compensation is based on several things and not just hard work alone. It takes several things to be able to do that, right? We also understood that through this law of conversation, that giving is the pathway to receiving, right? So we give, and that opens the path for us to be able to receive something in turn. But when for us to be able to receive that, the other thing we must understand is that we have to be open to receiving, which could be a struggle spot for a lot of empathetic and giving people. They don't always have the same ability to receive. Receiving makes them feel some sort of way, but for us to achieve, for us to be able to get compensated for the efforts and the things that we do in this life, our thoughts, our services, and all those things, we must also be open to receive whatever that compensation may necessarily be. Hold on, this is a little important, family. Okay. So we also learned that in this law of compensation, one of the more important things that we have to have is is boundaries. Boundaries are essential. This law does not require you to overgive or sacrifice yourself. You do not have to become a self martyr to be able to get these compensation. There's boundaries in compensation, and they are essential because being exploited is not a requirement for you to be compensated for the things that you do, right? So then we also discussed how is this applicable to our lives, right? We understood that it takes more than effort. It needs value, right? It takes more than just effort. Skills, insight, learn more, problem solving, all those things increase compensation more than just effort alone, right? It also is, we always are being compensated, right? Notice all forms of returns and not just the monetary returns when it comes to things like that. Hold on. When it comes to compensation, right? Because we understand there's opportunities, there's stronger relationships. There are various ways to be compensated, right? We also understand that what we give emotionally shapes our relationships. Hold on, I gotta turn this down. My phone going crazy right now. Doo-doo-doo. What you give emotionally shapes your relationships, and understanding that. So your emotional availability, the effort, the service, the things that you do with emotional shapes the dynamics of your relationship, right? Also, that giving without boundaries winds up blocking healthy compensation. So that's why it's important to have boundaries, because you'll get compensated, but it won't necessarily be a healthy compensation for you. All right, now this week we are discussing the law of relativity. Excuse me. The law of relativity simply states that everything is relative and nothing has meaning by itself. That means meaning is created through this idea of comparison, right? Events, challenges, and experiences are generally neutral. They're not good or bad, right? They don't take on a shape, they don't take on a meaning until we apply that. And the things that we use to apply meaning are our perspective, it is our context, it is comparison, and it is our mind state that allows us to be able to apply meaning. For example, we only understand light because we experience dark. We only understand successful because we experience failure. That allows us a space to be able to compare what we know of one thing and what we're learning of a new thing, right? So then you'll ask, why do challenges exist, right? Everyone must face a certain level of difficulty. And the challenges that we wind up facing, they help us build perspectives. And we are understanding that perspectives are the tools that help us navigate a lot of our experiences, right? It helps us develop resilience. We understand that once we fall, we do have the skills to get back up and keep trying. Once we experience one failure, that doesn't make us give up. We go back and we try again and we keep trying. We keep trying until we get there, right? It also, these challenges help us to increase gratitude. We begin to become a little more thankful for the things that we do have in play in our life, the experiences that we have, our successes. We even become a little more thankful for some of our failures because of the lessons that we learn from those failures, right? The challenges that we experience also help us to sharpen our clarity, right? It helps us to clear the fog in our vision. You know that thing where we say, where we've talked about on this show several times, where sometimes it gets clearer when we do the work, right? And these challenges winds up helping us sharpen that clarity. It winds up helping us to get rid of the fog that is not allowing us to be able to see the whole picture. And these challenges help us deepen our understanding. First, we get the knowledge, we learn of this thing, and then we practice it. And that's how we get the wisdom, is through the manifestation of our knowledge, through our ways and action. And after we had it in our ways and action for some times, we wind up getting to the space of understanding. And these challenges give us deep understanding, right? We also want to dive a little bit deeper into the fact that meaning is created by perspective, right? The same event can be devastating to one person, motivating to another, and then have no meaning or no effect at all to a third person at all, right? And this is, we understand, so that two people can experience the same situation and grow in opposite directions. The perfect example of this is siblings. We can meet people raised by the same parents in the same household, and they be two very different people. Because those experiences, although those are shared experiences, the understanding, the interpretation, the meaning that is applied to those experiences are very different based on each individual experiencing that, right? So this is important to understand, because the main point behind this is suffering winds up decreasing as we increase our perspectives. That's one of the reasons why we say perspectives are the tools to help us navigate these experiences that we have, right? Because once we have new perspectives, things don't always seem so overwhelming, or don't always seem so difficult, or don't always seem so hard, or don't always seem a lot of different things, right? So that's why we wind up building our perspectives and learning other ways of doing things, other thought patterns, all types of everything. That's the purpose of doing that, right? We also want to understand that comparison shapes your emotional experiences, right? Comparison winds up being the foundation for you to be able to help to create some sort of meaning, right? Comparison is an unavoidable thing. So we can make this idea of comparison work for us, or this idea of comparison can work against us, right? Example of it working against us is a negative comparison idea. An example of a negative comparison idea would be something like if we have one of those self conversations and we say that others are doing better than me, right? That type of framing that idea in that way winds up leading to feelings of envy. There wind up being discouragement. It winds up allowing you to have feelings of being a little more discouraged, and it helps to create feelings of inadequacy, right? But we can flip that over and turn that into a positive comparison and get a whole different other emotions. For example, we can ask that same question by acknowledging that others have overcome greater obstacles, and understanding and respecting the difficulty that others have gone that is far beyond yours can help you to grind up creating a sense of gratitude, a better sense of gratitude. It winds up helping you be a little more motivated because you understand that you too can go a little bit harder or a little bit longer. You have a little bit more in your reserves to give, and it has a way of teaching us a sense of humility, right? That positive comparison winds up keeping us humble because we know that there are people who are having it way more difficult than we are, right? Next, we want to understand that problems are scaled. Hey, Toddy, welcome, 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 welcome. I hope you eating tacos. Or Taco Tuesday. What time is it? So we want to understand this idea that problems are scaled and they're not absolute. What does that mean? What does problems aren't scaled? Problems are scaled, they're not absolute. That means a problem only feels big because you haven't seen bigger yet, right? Can you imagine? Think about when you were a child and some of the things that would stress you out. Like not being able to find your sock or anything like that. That can wind up feel like your whole world is shattering. But now that you're older and you experience a little bit more of loss and grief and things like that, that not being able to find a sock does not seem so big. Now because you have experienced more. So also what this means is that is not absolute. They are scaled, is that as your capacity grows, the same problems feel smaller, right? And what once overwhelmed you now seems so much more manageable. Like that idea of, I just said with the socks, or we all grew up with this and it's a joke that we live by now. McDonald's money. You don't have no McDonald's money. Now we got McDonald's money and we don't even want to go to McDonald's like that anymore. So that's funny because when we were a kid, that was so much to us. But now that we're grown and we experience more, it doesn't even hit the same, right? We also want to understand that these challenges challenges grow with us and not against you, right? So what we want to understand from that is growth does not eliminate problems at all. It only changes the scale. As we become better equipped, the problems become a little more difficult because we now have more tools to handle more difficult problems, right? We also want to understand that emotional pain is relative, right? So what does that mean? Pain is real, but the intensity of that pain depends on our emotional resilience. How many times do we bounce back? How easy or how strong, how many tools do we have to help balance our emotions, right? The intensity depends on our experiences. Do we have a long list of experiencing things like this in our life that we keep on compounding and using as examples as to why things are the way they are, right? The intensity is related to the expectations. A lot of times, as a matter of fact, I was just talking to one of the soul family, and they're going through a difficult time in their life with their family and all these things. And they have expectations on their siblings, right? And those expectations are making the intensity of what she is experiencing even stronger because of what she thinks the other person should know, right? Also, the intensity depends on the meaning that we attach to it. So the intensity is stronger based on what we apply to it, what feelings we give to it. And again, we have to reiterate this so we keep reminding ourselves that feelings are the stories that we tell ourselves, right? So, in understanding this law of relativity, we want to know that it doesn't invalidate pain, right? It gives us the understanding of why pain changes over time and why pain changes with perspective, right? So now, what is the science behind this idea? What scientific ideas wind up supporting it? We talked about it before. It's the cognitive appraisal theory. What is that? Events are neutral. And essentially what creates the emotional experience is cognitive appraisal. And that's how we interpret the event. It is only as valuable as the meaning we give it. Hey, pretty black girl. I actually was thinking about you earlier. Probably because I seen your video too. So I see you posted trying to be fabulous. I appreciate your support as always. Thank you, 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 thank you. Also, neurosciences supports this idea of the law of relativity. So what neurosciences winds up telling us is that emotional intensity is context dependent. It is always so when people are asking for the context before they respond, that makes sense because how you respond is going to be based on context. So emotional intensity is always based on the context of what's happening. For example, sometimes if you know you did wrong and you get called out for that wrong, it isn't always that intense, right? Because you knew you did wrong. But when you did right and get called out for being wrong, that can be way more intense for you, way more intensified. You feel that deeper because of the context around that, right? And our emotional responses to these things wind up depending on our prior experiences, again, our expectations, our perceived alternate. If we actually think that there are other ideas, like that's where that idea of the grass is greener on the other side, perceived alternates and social comparison. When we look around to our peers and the people around us, how we compare ourselves to them will affect the intensity of what we wind up feeling, right? The next idea, scientific idea that supports this law of relativity is social comparison theory. And that is humans just naturally compare themselves to assess various things like their success. We compare ourselves to assess our status. We compare ourselves to assess our adequacy, and we compare ourselves to assess our safety. If we feel safe and comfortable in this space, right? So, what are the implications to this law of comparisons? I mean, it's not the law of comparisons. Oh my God, that slipped my mind that fast. Law of relativity. We already did something else. What are the implications? Right. So, first implication of the law of relativity is challenges are reference points. Difficulty exists to give us a contrast and to give us perspective. It's not about singling you out, it's about your growth and evolution, right? That difficulty gives us something to compare about so we know what easy feels like, and it gives us perspectives. That's how we're able to be able to offer advice and support to people that we love or don't love, people that we know, or people that you just want to guide, people who look to us for guidance because of this perspective of the things that we have experienced and learned, right? Next, your experience is shaped by perspectives and not circumstances. The situations around what we feel or what we experience are less as important than the perspectives that we apply to what we experience, the feelings, right? And that makes us understand that we have more influence over our experiences than we give ourselves credit, right? All right. Do, 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 do. Also, an implication is a major one that comparison can hurt or heal depending on how you use it. That's important, right? So the law does not necessarily teach us to compare, but does not teach us not to compare. So it's not telling us not to compare, but it's telling us to be wise in our comparison. Use thought, use perspective. If we don't have enough perspective, get some perspective, learn some new information, talk to some people who can give you some perspectives so that we can compare wisely, right? Gratitude winds up becoming a natural outcome. Gratitude emerges from perspectives. As you learn more, you become a little more thankful for what you do know, what you do have, and what you will learn. Gratitude is a natural outcome of perspective, right? Also, an implication behind knowing this, applying this law to your life, or the implication behind this law, is that your emotional reactivity decreases, right? And understanding that relativity helps you to pause before reacting. It's funny because I was joking with someone today. And I told them, I say, aren't we learning to pause before we react? As someone was trying to get them to do something that was questionably legal, very questionably legal, right? Next, the implication is suffering becomes optional. Pain is not optional. Pain is a part of life, but suffering is optional. Pain is real, but prolonged suffering comes from an interpretation. It is how we are viewing that, why we are stuck in that place. When some of us are struggling to move on or get beyond certain things, we are there because of our perspectives. And we need to wind up applying new perspectives or learning new perspectives so that we can apply them to these things so that we can move forward, right? Changing your perspective does not erase the pain, but what it does is reduce unnecessary suffering. The suffering does not have to be so long or so intense once you add healthy perspectives to that, right? Also, an implication of this is that our judgment softens towards ourselves and others. Once we realize that experiences are relative, self-criticism decreases. We also, comparison shame winds up fading away. So now we no longer feel as shameful because we don't think that we're at the space that we should be in our life, or we don't think that we have what we should have in our life, or we are experiencing something that we don't think we should experience at the age that we are in our lives. The comparison shame fades and empathy for others increase. We begin to give not only ourselves a little more grace, but it helps us to be able to give other people a little more grace as well, because we begin to understand that pain is relative And suffering is something that we create by the perspectives that we apply to our experiences, right? Do, 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 do. One of the best implications that we can have for this law of relativity is that life feels less personal and less hostile. We wind up stop asking questions like, why is this happening to me? And we start asking questions like, what can I learn from this, right? It makes us a little less reactive because we don't think that things are just happening to us. We learn that we're not necessarily alone. We learn that there are others experiencing the same things as us. And then it just doesn't seem like it's just you, an attack on you, a direct attack on your well-being or your person, right? And some of that comes from us changing our perspective or changing how we frame these ideas and flip from why is this happening to me to what can I learn from this? What is this cycle trying to teach me that I have not learned as of yet? And what do I need to learn to be able to move forward, right? So, lastly, we want to understand how is all of this applicable to my life. The law of relativity explains why our problems feel so big and why our problems feel so small. It helps us see that we create the energy that makes it feel big, or we create the energy that makes it feel small, right? And those feelings of overwhelmed are in comparison to what you have experienced, right? Like, as a matter of fact, I've been talking to one of the Soul family about a car accident. They had a very bad car accident several years ago, right? So, of course, it'd be natural that you will have this underlying fear of being in another car accident, right? Well, of course, it wasn't a matter of if, it was just a matter of when. And after a while, they were in another accident again, right? And this time, the accident wasn't as bad. So they can clearly see how they're not nearly as overwhelmed because they personally have experienced much worse, right? They know how bad it can be, or they've seen how bad it can be. So now they can be a little more thankful for this understanding and this new perspective. And they are no longer gripped by feelings of being overwhelmed, right? Next, the way it's applicable to your life is it helps you to reframe challenges without denying them. A lot of times when we try to move on from things, the way that we do that is denying that it happened, or forgetting that it happened, or moving it to the back of our mind so we don't have to think about it or process it anymore, right? But what this winds up doing is helping us, giving us a tool to be able to reframe these experiences from, again, from that space of why is this happening to me to what can I learn from that, right? We understand that pain is real. Again, pain is something that we all experience, right? But the meaning of that pain is very flexible. And it can change over time. It can change over experience. It can change through a lot of various roads and paths, right? And that's where we understand. So pain is real, but we applying this law understand that the meaning of that pain is very flexible depending on what meaning we give it, right? Also, it builds resilience over time. This is one of the reasons why we don't do a lot of praying for strength. We ask for strength, we ask for guidance, but we're careful in those prayers and a little more specific because life itself will give us that. We learn resilience by trying again, right? It explains to us, this law gives us an explanation that we are stronger than we used to be. And that is a space that we can be thankful for. These experiences that we have given us a sense of emotional strength. And we can look back on our timeline and see the way that we have grown and become stronger individuals because of these experiences, right? And lastly, it helps you practice gratitude without forcing it. Gratitude winds up becoming a byproduct of the awareness. We wind up being able to have a healthier and stronger relationship with this sense of gratitude, because we have the perspectives of when we didn't have, and now that we do have, we can be a little thankful for that, right? So, family, that is the law of relativity, right? And it's funny because me and my homeboy was talking about mathematics, like literal math, and having that conversation with people and talking about how all that math we learned we don't really use in everyday life. But my friend wound up saying something that was very important that contradicts that. That math winds up teaching us problem solving skills, right? So we learn a lot from that math to be able to apply these problem solving skills. And I say that because the theory of relativity is also one that is in mathematical theory as well, one that's created by Einstein, but it's a true example of how we are able to see, or how we are able to connect to the fact that we are problem solving beings, right? And so far, these 8 laws, or well, we're on law 9 today, these 9 laws are giving us tools to be able to navigate, or to be able to help us better with our alchemy on our energy and our relationships and our well-being as we evolve to become our most authentic self, right, family? Child, we're a little bit quick today, so I'm not going to press the mic. I'm not going to press it. I'm going to go with the flow of the energy of today, and we're going to wrap up a little bit early. If you got some time, make sure you go over to TikTok and support the Soul Family, Cat's Kitchen, as she does her verses. If you are with us on Thursday, we will continue our reading of Changeling, which I'm enjoying very much. And next Tuesday, we will begin the discussion on the law of polarity, right? And as we wrap this up, I want to remind you of our affirmations and let you know that you are divine. You are connected to the universe. You are at peace. You are a spiritual being, and you can release doubt and welcome faith. Family, I appreciate you for your support. Black girl, I see you hung in there for a little while. So thank you and good night to you. See you Thursday, or I'll see you next Tuesday, family. Thank you again. And we're out. Peace.